Today I'm going to talk about CMT integration with the database. Okay, so my topic today is, first I'm going to talk about our CMT Database Solution, and the second one is the applications and demos. And if you look at the handouts on the right, there are two files on the right. One is for DB training, and let me open up that file for you right here. Okay, so this is our training material last year. So if you want to know more detail about how you can access a database and some networking training, scroll down a little bit, and how you can use our MySQL service on CMT, or more detail like how you can access data from our Datalog and Eventlog. You can find those material inside this 2016 DB training.pdf. And the second one is the Weintek seminar slide for today. Okay, so let's continue. So I'm going to talk about some database concepts that maybe some of you are not familiar with. Okay, so what is a database? You can take it like an Excel workbook, and which contains multiple worksheets, which is tables. Okay, so this is a very simple and like a single user only database. So every time you want to modify something, you have to open this Excel workbook and modify something and transfer this file to your colleagues or somebody else. Then when he is finished with this file, then he will transfer this. He will transfer this Excel file back to you. So it's like a single user only database. So every time when you have two people want to modify or check out the same thing, it's hard for people to synchronize with each other. So maybe Peter and I are using the same Excel worksheet, then sometimes I will use like a previous version instead of the latest one. Okay, so this is what will happen when you have like one record every 30 seconds and one file per day. And later, maybe next year, when you look back for the records this year, then you're going to have a headache, like how can I find a specific data that I want in the file folder, or there are just too many files that if I want to make an average of them or find a maximum value, then it's going to be very hard for you to go through every file. So people invent this database system. So you can have shared databases on the same database system. And then everyone will be a database client access the same data on the database. Okay, so they have a very specific language to access the data on the database, which is called SQL, or Structural Query Language, or SQL. And then every time you want to access the data on the database, you have to use SQL language to find your data or calculate the thing you want. So what is SQL? So it's very intuitive. So if you want to add a new data, you just say insert into a table with a value 1, value 2, and value 3. If you want to read or select or retrieve some data from a table, you just say that I want to select something from a table. And if you want to update or if you want to delete, they have corresponding instruction in SQL language. Okay. So for example, I want to heat process a special metal for Iron Man. So I insert a new row of data to the recipe table, which is called heat process recipe. And then my corresponding SQL statement is like this. So I want to insert into the recipe with first item is the name, the second is temperature 1 and temperature 2, with value as Ironman steel and temperature 1 as 700 and temperature 2 as 750. So this is the basic idea for SQL and how you can access the database. So for database, if you want to know more or if you want to set up your own database server, we have files on our website that you can access. So if you go to our download area, which is, let me open up folder here. You go to our website, okay? And then go to the download section. All right, so you can just type in database. Then you see there's a database server MySQL user manual. And we have a corresponding demo project that is a database server demo project that you can try at home or at work. Okay, so those two are the links that you can use. And then you will need MySQL Server installation. So you can download it on the, choose, I think, MySQL.com. Okay, then go to their downloads. All right, and let me see here. I'm not in enterprise, so I'm going to the community edition. Then have a lot of options right here, so you can just click on this community server. All right, so right here you can get the installer for MySQL Server. Okay, and if you want to learn about SQL, you can go to any website online and learn some basic idea for SQL. And the reason I'm talking about this is because for our HMI, we're going to have a new feature that is called SQL Query in our next version of EasyBuilder Pro that will allow you to use direct SQL language to do anything you want. And for right now, if you have EasyBuilder Pro 5.07.01 or 2, you have data sampling and event alarm log that you can store them into database. Okay, so for our CMT Database Solution, for this first one, we focus on the sampling data and transactional data. So for example, if you want to record the whole process of the machine, then you can use like data sampling to record the data into the database. Or if something bad happened or something you want to record in a centralized database, you can use event log into and save or synchronize them to the database. Okay, and for our next version, we're going to have a shared recipe feature, or you can have a general SQL query in our new SQL query object. Okay, so I'm going to review the features that we have right now and going to talk about the SQL query later. So for Datalog, the data is first captured and recorded should be recorded by data sampling, and then they will be displayed by using those two different objects. And if you have enabled database in a CMT series, let me just switch to EasyBuilder Pro here. Okay, so for example, right here I have the EasyBuilder Pro 6 version, and if I open up the data sampling here and open this one, if you can see there's a synchronize to database option right here. Okay, so right here this one saying that if you have multiple different, for example, if you synchronize to USB disk and then synchronize to database at the same time, you will be able to say on CMT viewer, I want to show history from USB disk or from database. Okay, but if you don't, it will just use this one automatically. All right, and then for Datalog, you can continuously record data like every seconds or every 2 or every 30 seconds, or you can record by event. So for example, you have a product going through the machine, then you want to record the parameters or the recipes that is being used right now, then you can use like the trigger-based sampling and synchronize those sampling data into database. Okay. And then for event log, you can record event-based information. And in our next version, we're going to have occurrence count and elapsed time for event logs. And historical events is the same thing like data log. You can choose to read from USB or SD card or database using event display. So let me show you right here. Okay, if I open up the event, if you have enable SD or USB stick, then you can say I want to show the history source from different media. Okay, let me just show you a short demo about what I'm going to do today. So I have a MySQL server running on this computer. Then every time I click sync, okay, let me open the workbench for MySQL here. Let me click refresh and check the data on the database. So every time I click click synchronize, it will automatically synchronize all the data shown right here to the database. Okay, because there are too many right now. Let's see. More right here, correct? So right now I have at the time I click sync, I have 38. So you can see I have around 36 right here. Okay. All right. So this is Datalog and Eventlog. All right. So if you are not familiar with it, we have some very special mechanism for it to help you synchronize and do the related work. For example, if you set 1 to the control word, let me go back right here. Okay. Open up the settings, and you can check that in the control address, there's a control command. If you set 1 to it, it will clear all the data on the HMI. If you set 2 to the control address, you can synchronize those data into, if you have USB disk here, it will synchronize all the data to USB disk or synchronize to database. Okay. All right, so if you use 3, then it will help you to synchronize first and then remove duplicated data on the HMI. Okay. All right, so this is Datalog and Eventlog, and more details. So the table name for the Datalog is like this. So you will have HMI name and Datalog name with a postfix data, and those the 2 below it is the system folder. Let me open up the MySQL workbench, and you can double check right here. So let me select the data format. Okay. So the data format records, for example, the first column is a 16-bit sign, and the second one is 32-bit unsigned, and the third one is 32-bit float. So let me go back to the data here. So those format will match those data format 0, 1, 2, and 3 right here. Okay. And for event log, the same thing. So if you want to know more detail, you can open the PDF that I just show you in the beginning of this webinar, that you can have some example or some simple SQL query to retrieve data from the data sampling table or from the event log table. Okay, and then I'm going to talk about SQL query introduced in EasyBuilder Pro v6. So what we are going to have is a universal and flexible database solution. So you're going to able to be to directly access database using user-defined SQL statement. So let me show you right here, this one here. So let me open the SQL query, and then when I click read, it will help me to read from the database. But if I want to create something else, like third recipe, okay, and say create. Okay, it's done, but not showing on the screen because I have to click the read again. Then you will see that the third recipe is added to the record. If I click, if I try to input something, recipe sample, okay, and click create, okay, you can see something happen background. And then if I click read, you can see those data are retrieved again from the database. Let me show you from the MySQL workbench. So right now I have 4, and let me go back to this test and create. Okay, you don't see anything change here, but if you go back here and query it again, you can see that the 5th row is created. Okay, so this is SQL query simple mode to help you to have a shared recipe on the database server. So if you have multiple machines want to access the same data, you can use this SQL query to access the same data. So what is the scenario? So if you have multiple manufacturing line and you have the same recipe or formula for each line, then it's a good idea for you to store those formula in the database server. Then every time you want to change something to your formula, you can just change it on the database server. Then each line just read from the database server. Or if you want to trace or make some manufacturing record for your product, for example here, when you have a product ready, you have a barcode for it, then you want to mix it using the same barcode record, and then baking using the same manufacturing serial or barcode sequence. Then after packaging, you will be able to trace from baking, from mixing to ingredients, like what happened to this product and what happened to individual parts or parameters. Or you can use, if you have a standalone machine and you want to tell the operator like what they have to build or what they have to make for the day, you can save those work order on the database, and then the machine will retrieve this work order to the machine. Then the operator will be able to see what they really need for the day. For example, if you have a CNC machine, then you can have our HMI as a helper tool for the operators to get what they need to make for the day and how efficiency they build, or how many parts are processed for all manufacturing machines. Okay, so our SQL query scenarios is first one is shared recipes, and the second one is that if you have testing parameters like for compressors or for different manufacturing machines or serial or imprint data, you can use SQL Query to get the shared data from the database. Or if you want to make your production process traceable or the manufacturing records, you can use our SQL Query, or you can do daily work orders or simple data logging. Okay. So this is a shared recipe that I just showed you. So basically, what we have is a SQL Query object that will help you to retrieve the table from the database. Then it will be stored or saved in the HMI memory. So every time when I click read, it will save those records in the HMI memory. So if the database goes down or the connection is broken, you will still have those data in your memory. Okay. So that's the reason that every time I click create or update, I have to read again, because those data are in the memory. Unless I click read, it won't be updated. Okay. So for shared recipe to work, you have to first create a table in MySQL. So you have first method, you can use SQL statement to create a table here, or you can use MySQL Workbench to create the table using a GUI interface. So create table and fill in the table name and the column name into MySQL Workbench and create the corresponding table. And then in EasyBuilder Pro, you can open up the SQL Query and click the import from server to import those data for you. Let me open up EasyBuilder Pro here. Okay, so let me open up SQL Query and create a new one here. Okay, so I have a database connection ready in the database server here, and let me just type in the table name here. So it is heat process recipe. Okay, then I click import from server. Then it will help you to import the schema or database table schema from this database server. Then you can just set up like for this column, I want to save it as 16-bit unsigned, or for the name, I want to save it as string with the 20 word count, and it will help you to calculate the address. So if I click 500 here, okay, it will jump from 0 to 500. Okay, then this is the schema address. That means every time you select a row or select a data, then it will help you, the SQL query will help you to write those data to this address. So let me show you right here. So when I click here, those are the schema address that I set up right here. Okay. Or you can say in the command, you can check out that we have command ID or row selection as showing like right here. So I can say I want to select 4 or select 0. It will help me to transfer the data in the memory to a local word in the corresponding address. Okay. So this is SQL query using, if you want to use shared recipe or share some data on the database server. Okay, and then we have advanced mode. So you can write your own SQL statement in our SQL query advanced mode. So basically, you can write anything you want. So for example, right here, let me open up the SQL query advanced mode. Then I can click this one, And what I'm doing here is I want to get the minimum, average, maximum, and standard deviation from our Datalog data here. So I can say calculate the minimum, average, and maximum from another table. And what I am doing here is in this SQL Query 2, this is in advanced mode. And when I click command, I can check out that there I have a very special SQL query command here. Okay, with the output to corresponding 500, 502, and 4 and 6 on the screen. And you can check out that in our project. Like this one is the 500 and this one is the 502. Okay, so it will help you to transfer the data from your SQL query to corresponding PLC address. Okay, so it's a little bit complicated, but it's a very powerful tool for you to integrate with MySQL database. Or for example here, you can use your self-defined SQL here. So let me show you here. I can select everything from heat, process, recipe, okay, and run this command. Okay, then you can select everything from this heat, process, recipe, or if I type in insert, or you can write any SQL command here. So basically, this is what you can do with this powerful SQL query tool in EasyBuilder Pro. Okay, and so I'm pretty much done for the webinar today. So let me just review some features that we have for CMT Database Solution. So for data sampling or Datalog, you can sampling data by time or by trigger and write them into the database. Or in our next version of EasyBuilder Pro, you can use SQL Query to write any data or do anything using the power of a SQL statement to do anything you want to the database. Okay. All right. So the first thing you need to learn is how you can write a simple SQL command, and you can read from our. Let me open up right here. Okay. So we have some example or some SQL statement that you can use in this PDF. Okay. All right. So after that, you can still use some open source online tool to build your report from the data log or from the recipe you have in your database. And BIRT, B-I-R-T, is kind of the thing you need. It is a report generator. So if you want to generate a commercial report like every week or every month, then you can use this powerful tool to build everything, every report you need. And I think it is a very popular one, and they claim that they have over 2 or 3 million developers globally. And it's a very popular one if you're looking for a open source SQL reporting reporting tool for your department and report to somebody else or to the business intelligent people. So you can check out this tool later. Okay, so this is the webinar that I'm going to talk about today.